Hello and welcome. You're watching To The Point. On Thursday, Captain Amarinder Singh was sworn in for the second time as Chief Minister of Punjab. It's the first major state won by the Congress since Karnataka in 2013 and the only happy outcome of the recent 5 state elections. But the new Chief Minister inherits a very difficult and troubled legacy. The challenges he faces includes an agrarian crisis, youth unemployment, drug addiction and a massive debt burden. In addition, he also has to handle the tricky Satluj-Yamuna link canal issue. Finally, it's no secret that how Captain Amarinder Singh handles Punjab will also reflect on Congress's national prospects. This means he enters office with an enormous burden of responsibility. Today, in his first interview after his swearing in, Captain Amarinder Singh joins me to talk about the challenges he faces and how he will respond to them. Chief Minister, congratulations on the start of your second tenure as head of government in Punjab. What does it feel like to be back in power after a gap of 10 years?
Well, firstly, thank you, Karan. Well, it is always good. This is what we fought for the last 10 years, and we are now in power. And we've got a lot of work ahead of us, as you just mentioned. But we're going to do it if we have to put the state back on the road.
I want very much to talk about the formidable challenges you face, as well as the fairly momentous and numerous decisions you took at your first cabinet meeting 48 hours ago on Saturday. But before I come to that, let me talk to you about the political situation you face. This time around, you face 2 separate opposition parties in the Assembly. The Akalis with 15 seats, the Aam Aadmi Party with 20. Which do you believe will pose the bigger challenge to you?
I think it'll be the Akali Dal. It always has been. They've been in existence for 100 years, and they can't just disappear. Obviously, this time there has been a lot of anger in the people, the traditional Akali voter, which is from the villages, with the way they were handled. The procurement and other things. But, you know, as I said, this party came into being in 1922, and that's nearly 100 years, so you can't just wish it away. The other people, Aam Aadmi Party, look at them in 2014, they've fallen since then. Their vote percentage has fallen, their seats have fallen. I think it's a sort of what I call a bubble, and I think that bubble has burst.
So as a result of you're saying the bubble has burst, you believe that even though they have more seats than the Akali Dal, the Akali is the real challenge to your government. That's the one you're going to focus on. Aam Aadmi, you're not so worried about.
You know, the reason is because out of the these chaps fought 117 seats. The Akalis didn't fight 117 seats. They left, I think, 18 or 19 to the BJP. So the percentage-wise, if you look at it as a state in the entire state, the Akalis are higher than these people are.
Now, Arvind Kejriwal, not once but repeatedly during the campaign, threatened to send Prakash Singh Badal, Sukhbir Singh Badal and Bikram Singh Majithia to jail. What sort of relationship will you have with the Badal family?
Look, there is a constitution in this country, there is a law in this country, there's the way things work. You just can't come into government and pick up everybody and put them in jail. That's no way for any government to function. However, having said that, in case there is anything that shows up in any department that there has been malafide or some sort of favoritism or corruption or whatever you may call it, certainly it will be looked into. And if something like that happens and a case is registered, then it's for the courts to decide. It's not for me to just arrive as a chief minister and bundle them all off to jail.
But if I understand you correctly, you're also saying, Chief Minister, that there will be no settling of political scores, no taking of revenge. You will ensure a proper, correct, constitutional relationship with the opposition.
Yes, there's going to be no vendetta. No vendetta politics.
No vendetta politics, I've understood.
Absolutely, no vendetta. We've got too many problems to bother about. I've got 90 lakh youngsters without jobs. I've got the agrarian sector, we've got procurement in another 10 days. We've got so much happening in the state. We have to look at Punjab's development now, and we can't just concentrate on these things. But if ever anything in any ministry comes up, then certainly it will be looked into. After all, it is a violation of the law.
I'll come in a moment's time to the enormous challenges that you referred to. But first, let me also ask you about Narendra Modi. You've taken over as Chief Minister at a time when Narendra Modi is a very powerful Prime Minister in Delhi. Yet relations between Congress and the BJP are not just fraught, they're often far from amicable. What sort of relationship do you envisage with the central government?
Well, when I came over last time, Vajpayee ji was the Prime Minister, and he was Prime Minister when I was Chief Minister for 2 years. And we, at that level, at the level of Government of India and at the level of the state government, there is no such, let's say, political animosity. I got full support from him as Prime Minister. I got full support from his Finance Minister, Mr. Jaswant Singh ji. I got full support from Jetli, who was Law Minister. So I had no complaints at all. And I don't think there should be any reason for me to have any complaint now. In fact, I'm going to call on the Prime Minister day after tomorrow.
In fact, Arun Jaitley, who is Finance Minister, was also the person who stood against you in 2014 from Amritsar. You beat him very decisively by over 1 lakh. Will that past affect the relationship in the future with the Finance Minister, or do you think that's over and done with? Politics is now history. You have a new opportunity.
Well, I don't know whether, when I was an MP and he was in the Rajya Sabha, we used to occasionally bump into each other, and elections are elections. Once they are over, things are forgotten, and we met very cordially, and I didn't see any animosity in him at all either.
You say you're calling on the Prime Minister in 48 hours time, if I heard your answer correctly. Do you plan to take any personal initiative to ensure that the relationship between Amarinder Singh and Narendra Modi remains smooth regardless of the politics between your two parties?
No, this is my duty as a newly elected Chief Minister to call on the Prime Minister. I shall in due course be calling on the President, of course, and also Home Minister and the Finance Minister and all of them. These are courtesy calls which are normally done, and I'm going in that connection.
Now, Navjot Sidhu is a senior member of your cabinet, but it's no secret that earlier you've been often cool to each other. You were never really close in terms of the relationship you had with him. Do you think you could have problems with him in your cabinet?
No, there are two aspects of it. Look, I have always had a very warm relationship with him and his family, their Patiala family. And his father was my mother's, when she was MP, and he was the district president of the Congress party. And when my mother went to Lok Sabha, to Rajya Sabha, she made him the PCC president, DCC president of Patiala. So the families have known each other a long time. It's only in the political field we have been sort of rivals in the last couple of years, but these things happen. As I said, I've just fought Mr. Jetli, and we seem to be cordial towards each other, and I'm sure the same will happen here. We haven't fought each other, Navjot and I, and I'm sure we'll get on well. So far, he has given me a lot of affection and respect, and I don't expect any problems from him at all.
One last question before I come to the challenges you face and the momentous decisions you took at your first cabinet meeting on Saturday. Navjot Singh Sidhu has let it be known that he intends to continue with his TV work, even though he is now a full-fledged member of your cabinet. What do you make of that?
Well, I don't know what the constitutional position, the law is on this matter. We'll have to ask our Advocate General to give us an opinion, or the LR, to whether a person who is a minister can do what he wants to do. It will depend entirely on what the legal position is. And then, of course, I will bring it to Mr. Navjot Sidhu's notice. But at the moment, yes, he has been saying this, that he would like to carry on. Frankly, I don't know whether it is a conflict of interest or in whichever way the Constitution looks at it. But once we get that opinion, I will have a chat with Navjot.
You said a very important thing, Chief Minister. You will be consulting your Advocate General to get a legal opinion. whether Navjot Sidhu continuing with his TV work after becoming a cabinet minister is entering an area of conflict of interest. And if the answer you get from the Advocate General is that there is a conflict of interest, you will then raise the issue with Navjot Sidhu, and I presume you will advise him against continuing with TV work.
Yes, obviously you can't go against the constitution of the country. In addition to that, he is also my Minister of Culture, and which covers all these sort of programs. So that is why I'm saying that we'll have to, the AG will have to send me an opinion on this.
Absolutely. As Minister of Culture, there could be a very obvious and direct conflict of interest if he continues with TV work, because as Minister of Culture, he's responsible for the very work he's doing as a TV man.
Yeah, that's correct.
Let's then come, Chief Minister.
That's correct.
Right. My understanding is correct, and therefore this conflict of interest needs to be looked into very carefully and very scrupulously.
Yes.
Let's come, Chief Minister, to some of the decisions you took at your first cabinet meeting on Saturday. I am told you took 120 decisions, thereby fulfilling almost 1/3 of your manifesto promises, and that by all measure is a pretty incredible, amazing start. What message are you hoping to send out to the people of Punjab by that start?
No, it's not that. It's you know, there are two parts of the manifesto. One is the financially, where there are financial implications, and one is just good governance. These, what we have put in, taken the decisions were entirely good governance. The ones which have any financial implications will be looked at depending on our resources, and we'll have to phase them in. We've still got 5 years to go, so you can't do everything straight away. But yes, good governance ones we can do straight away, and why waste time on that?
And am I right in this assessment that it was 120 decisions that you've taken, and that these amount to, even though they're the good governance decisions, nonetheless they amount to pretty close to 1/3 of your manifesto promises?
That is true. But you know, things like stopping VIP culture, or things like to be tightening our belt because we don't have the funds, and therefore preventing ministers from holding banquets, or holding ministers from going abroad at government expense. These are the sort of things. These are good governance things, and we have to do them because our financial situation is very precarious, and unless we tighten our belt and increase revenue, you will never be able to resolve these.
Let's then come to 3 or 4 specific challenges you face, because as I've said, you face very daunting challenges in your second tenure as Chief Minister. One of them is the drug problem. Now, on Saturday, you announced a special task force operating from within the Chief Minister's office to prepare and implement a comprehensive program to eliminate drugs. Do you have an idea of the sort of steps that program could include?
Well, look, I have chosen a very fine Additional Director General of Police. He's at the moment volunteered, and for the last 2 years he's been fighting Naxalism in Chhattisgarh. And he's the boy I have brought in. And he's likely to join us on Monday. I have promised Punjab that in 4 weeks we are going to break the backbone of this chitta business, this synthetic drugs, which is the biggest killer in the state. And that we will do. And today I met all the SSPs and Deputy Commissioners of Punjab, and I have told them all that though we have a task force in my office, it will have to, every man on the ground will have to work with that task force to sort this out. And I think there was a lot of enthusiasm amongst the police officers who were there this morning, and the district magistrates. And by God's grace, we will do exactly what I've said.
2 quick follow-on questions. Are you confident that you can live up to the commitment you made in the campaign to eliminate or to tackle chitta within 4 weeks? It's a very short time frame, but are you confident you can meet that time frame?
4 weeks.
4 weeks, yes indeed. Can you meet it?
Doesn't matter, you know, it's we all know these things, what it is. You know, there are 2 aspects of it. One is what comes from Pakistan. That, of course, you got the border security. We are only a second line, which is opium and all that sort of thing. The one that comes through Rajasthan, which is opium, that we will be checking Because sadly, Madhya Pradesh can grow and sell opium. Rajasthan cannot grow it, but it can sell it, and Punjab becomes the market. So that we have to put a block on that. But that is not what I am saying, because opium goes through doctor's prescriptions and all also. I am concerned with these synthetic drugs which are made here, brought chemicals are mixed, and that is what is killing people off in a few months. And that is the chitta is what they call, that is the back of that will be broken within the stipulated period.
And the second follow-on question, you are laying a lot of importance to this gentleman from Chhattisgarh who will be joining you in a couple of days' time. He will be heading the task force. Will you give this task force the autonomy it needs to act professionally, although of course under your direct supervision, but will you give them the free hand to act professionally and to act without political interference?
Absolutely. He is being allowed, number one, to create his own team. He has to select people he knows and he trusts and who are above board, and right down to the lower levels. He'll have to do it. I want the job from him, and he has total freedom from my side to take whatever action is necessary and catch whoever is necessary who is involved in this.
Now, Captain Amarinder Singh, a second serious problem that you've inherited is the agrarian crisis, and that affects the majority of your state's population because they are farmers. On Saturday, after that first cabinet meeting, you announced the setting up of a group of experts to analyze the debt of farmers and to propose time-bound ways of waiving the debt in an overall 60-day framework. Do you propose to waive all farmer debts, or only those that are specifically related to agriculture, like for instance the purchase of fertilizer?
Actually, this is a commitment we have made in the
Carry on, sir. Oh, we seem to have lost the
No. What I was saying is that this was a commitment made by us during the elections. We had this IPEC team which we launched a program called Karza Kudki Maaf. That means no Karza and therefore no Kudki. And we have also said that there will be no rest of farmers. Even this in the cabinet meeting we said that there will be no rest in farmers. Now we know the number of people who have applied for this situation. I think it's about 30 lakhs. And there are three types of debts. There's the cooperative sector debt, there's the Artiya debt, there's the commission agents, or there is the national banks. And we will negotiate. If you can negotiate for industry and have a final settlement, why can't you do it for the agriculturists? The state takes it on and negotiates and has a final settlement with the banks. That is what we are planning, and this is what we're going to go ahead with, because land holdings are falling, Karan. Like this problem of this water, if SYL goes through, you will have at least 1 million acres of southern Punjab and 6.5 lakh families who are dependent on that going dry. They won't be able to survive. That is the area, that's a belt which is suffering. This is what I can't understand about what the judgment is coming from the Supreme Court, that build the canal and you can decide on what the quantum of water is later on. These things are going to be, so we are going to go to the Supreme Court on the 28th, again our date is, and we are going to be taking this up, that first find out whether there's, Government of India has found 80% of the subsoil of Punjab to be in the black zone. You can't use water there. If your canal systems which were dependent on glacier melt because of this glasshouse effect has taken place. What was in 1955 we had 15.5 million acre feet of water, and now we are down to 13. You don't have subsoil water, you don't have river water. How does the agrarian society of Punjab, and we live on agriculture, how do we survive?
We've begun talking about the Satluj-Jamuna Canal, which is one of the more tricky problems that you face. The Supreme Court, as you know, has directed Punjab to construct the link, but we all know that you are strongly opposed to it. Now, on Saturday, at that first cabinet meeting, you decided that you would take recourse to all possible legal and administrative measures to respond to the Supreme Court. Are you worried that you could end up defying the court, or look as if you're in defiance of the court?
I think our business is to convince the court. For instance, why didn't the previous government take up the issue of the reorganization of Punjab? Now let me tell you, this is an interesting thing. Punjab's assets were between Haryana and Punjab shared on a 60-40 basis. All buildings, all transport, all personnel, all water, all land, everything. But from the Ravi, Byas and Satluj water. So here it is, Punjab had 60% land, Haryana has 40. We got 60% of the Ravi Byas, which is 8 million acre feet. They got about 5.5 or whatever it is there. But the Yamuna water, which existed with United Punjab and should have been part of this seat sharing, water sharing, was not given to us because they say you're not riparian to the Yamuna waters, and it was all given to them. So technically now they have 40% of the land with 12 million acre feet of water, and we have 60% of the land with 8 million acre feet of water. Is that justice? That is the first thing that this last government should have challenged. The Reorganization Act of 1966.
And you're confident that when you make this argument and present these facts, you can convince the Supreme Court to agree with and to accept your position on the Satluj-Yamuna link canal. You're confident of that?
I think there are two things. One is this, the reorganization of Punjab, which needs to be challenged. And then secondly, of course, the quantum of water. If the water doesn't exist, what are you going to give? Now the judge says that you make the canal, we'll decide on the water later. Suppose they decide later that there is no water, then what do you do? What's the point of having dug a canal?
That I understand, but this is of course an issue that your opposition, the Akalis in particular, could exploit to your disadvantage. It's also an issue that has the potential to arouse the emotions of Sikh farmers, for whom it matters extremely. Does that aspect of the problem worry you, that it could become inflammable?
I go beyond that. I think this decision, if it goes against Punjab, will lead to terrorism in Punjab again. Let me tell you this, southern Punjab is where the tenant farmers used to be. And in 1950s there was a big tenancy movement and a lot of landlords and all were shot. They are all small holding areas. Then in 1960s the Naxal movement started in this particular area, southern Punjab. Then you had the Khalistan movement in this particular area, southern Punjab. And now with the Aam Aadmi has been trying to say, okay, this is our area, it's again southern Punjab. So that is where I've just told you, there are 1 million acre, 10 lakh acres of land and 6.5 lakh families. What does it come to? 1.5 acres per family. Can you survive on that?
So in fact, you're very worried.
That is why you are finding that there's a great emotional upset in that area.
And you're, as Chief Minister, extremely worried that an adverse decision from the court on the Satluj-Yamuna link canal issue could actually revive terrorism. You are not saying that lightly. You're saying it now as Chief Minister of Punjab, that
yes,
the possibility of terrorism reviving over this issue is a real worry. If you go back in time, go to the Anandpur Sahib resolution which the Akalis brought about in the 70s. What was the key issue in it? Water. And it was this SYL canal. That is why I'm trying to say that, people should look beyond this. We are bordering Pakistan. Pakistan only looks for an opportunity or trying to foment trouble in its neighbor states for its own security. What do you mean to say, if there's going to be sort of a upheaval in southern Punjab, they're not going to take advantage of it? Absolutely.
Who suffers? The country suffers. And Punjab suffers and the country suffers. And therefore I think you can't take these decisions lightly.
And these are points you need to make the Supreme Court aware of so that they can rethink their position, and you hope that they will rethink it in a way to be more accepting of your stand and your views. In a nutshell, am I right?
That is exactly.
There are, of course, yet more challenges you face. As I keep saying, Captain Amarinder Singh, you've come to be Chief Minister with a daunting legacy to handle. You also have a huge problem of youth unemployment. I believe Punjab has the highest level of youth unemployment in India, and few people would doubt that its lack of jobs, that is one reason why so many young Punjabis perhaps are drawn to drugs. I take it that at a time of agrarian crisis, the only way of creating new jobs is to stimulate industry. That has to be the way forward. Am I right?
Absolutely, 100%. And I've just been telling these officers here that we are going to liberalize policies and bring industry in, because without industry we can't survive. And when you say a huge problem, it is 90 lakh youngsters who are underpaid or not paid at all. And they are the ones who are turning to drugs and have turned to drugs.
So when you say you're going to liberalize policies as a way of inviting industry in, can you give me more details or more about the way you are going to invite investment to Punjab? Because Punjab has never got as much industrial investment as other states.
Yes, I can. No, it was not that. It was our states. You know, we had a united Punjab. And that united Punjab, Sardar Pratap Singh Kairo very wisely brought your industrial belt towards Delhi, which is Faridabad and Gurgaon and all that sort, because at that time there were wars going on. We had it in 47, we had it in 65, we had it in 71, 62, so everything was kept away from the border. So this was why it was our industrial belt. So once, thanks to these Akalis, once they broke Punjab and only, what have we gained from it? Nothing. You lost your forest wealth, you lost your river belt, belt of Himachal Pradesh, you've lost your 40% of your territory, you've lost your industrial belt. Why have they done it? Because you become a Sikh majority state so that Mr. Badal can come and become chief minister sometime. That was the only objective of this.
In other words, the industrial belt went to Haryana.
No industry in the state except along the GT road.
And the industrial belt that Punjab had went to Haryana. Now you have to create a new industrial belt.
Now what do we have to do?
Yes, please tell me. What do you have to do? That's very important. What are the steps?
I'll tell you what we have to do. We have to now, you know, everybody, every industry in this country thinks Punjab worker has got the potential. But we have to give them a level playing field. If you have to bring power, for instance, it must be at the way Rajasthan is doing it, or Chhattisgarh is doing it, or Jharkhand is doing it, or Odisha is doing it. It has to be same level of power. Today, if you are giving 3 rupees 25 paisas in Chhattisgarh and you are giving it 8 rupees 60 paisas in Punjab, who is going to come here? So these are the sort of things that we have to do. Land is not so much, it's a one-time investment. Even then, we can create land pools. But power, interestingly, we are a surplus state. These Akalis have shut down our entire power generation of the state, which is the State Electricity Board, and now we are in the private hands. And look at so power is available, but the prices are not conducive to industry. So we have to, these are all things that we have to work out.
How much time do you give yourself to change the industrial picture and to send out sufficient, or to take out sufficient measures to invite investment to Punjab? How much time are you giving yourself? Because clearly you have to do it before your midpoint, otherwise your unemployment problem, youth unemployment in particular, will continue to worry you.
Midpoint's 2.5 years away. Midpoint is 2.5 years away. We are going to do this in the next couple of months.
Within the next couple of months, the new measures...
We don't have time to waste. We can't do this.
So the liberalization of economic policy will happen very quickly.
Absolutely.
Is that right, sir? The liberalization of economic policy in Punjab will happen very quickly.
I've been working incidentally, very quickly, and incidentally, it's not working on it now. We've been working on it for 2 years. So we've got everything ready. It only has to be now formally brought into government.
So you've come to power with a blueprint in mind, very detailed and well worked out, about how to invite investment, how to encourage industry.
Absolutely.
Chief Minister, I need to take a small break at that point.
Yes, we have, and I can tell you that that's not a hidden secret.
In other words,
the whole of India's industry knows about it. And let me tell you that in the last couple of days, well, let's say since the elections, I've had umpteens of people ringing up who want to come and talk to us about setting up various projects in Punjab, and I said, you're all welcome, come.
So you've already been in touch with top industrialists.
And then if I have to go to Bombay and Madras and other places.
You will be visiting these cities to buy and personally attract them.
I met some in Delhi, and they made contact with me.
Chief Minister, I need to take a small break at that point.
Absolutely. I want my IT sector, which had come here, I brought it up.
Carry on, please finish, sir.
No, I said the IT sector I had brought in. We had made a beautiful IT sector in Mohali. These guys shut it down. So I had Infosys, I had Dell, I had Quark, I had all these industries here. They didn't give any support to the IT sector. I think it was a, this last very feudal sort of a government that came here just didn't look at these things. The service sector they completely ignored.
And you will now go back to reviving the IT sector. You will also, as you said, you've been in touch with top industrialists, and you're also planning to visit places like Bombay and Madras to personally invite them. All of that, including liberalizing economic policy, will happen within the short time frame of the next few months.
Yes, absolutely.
Captain Amarinder Singh, I need to take a short break at that point. When I come back, I want to talk to you about the debt burden you face, because it's enormous, and that could constrain your ability to act in terms of farm waivers. It could also constrain your ability in terms of so many other things that as Chief Minister you want to do. It's a critical problem you face. I'll come back to in a moment's time. And at the same time, I also want to talk about something else that you've decided to do on Saturday at that first cabinet meeting, which hasn't got the attention it deserves, and that is the decision to push ahead with police reform, something that the Supreme Court has been demanding since 2006 and which most, if not all, states have ignored. Yours could be the very first to go ahead with that. We'll be back in a moment's time for the second part of this exclusive interview. Welcome back. You're watching To The Point, and we're presenting an exclusive interview with the Chief Minister of Punjab, Captain Amarinder Singh. This is Captain Amarinder Singh's first interview since his swearing in on Thursday. Chief Minister, during the commercial break, it was brought to my attention that 24 hours after you decided that the use of red lights and special beacons on cars would be stopped, your Chief Secretary allegedly was seen in a car with a red light. Are you aware of that, Chief Minister?
Chief Secretary, no. I just met him. We were together all morning. I never saw him with any light. I don't know. But I saw all the cars standing out there. I didn't see a red light on any car.
You're fairly confident that that decision that red lights on cars will not be used anymore?
And I don't think, knowing this Chief Secretary, he's a very upright and a person, and there's no question of his having a red light once the government has taken a decision.
So you're fairly confident that this decision not to use red lights will be uniformly and comprehensively observed, that there will be no defiance of it?
Absolutely, none at all. Once it's a decision been taken, it's, all this has come out of our manifesto, then it's come into cabinet, now it's become government law, and there's no question of it being taking place. Nobody's going to have this thing.
Let's then come, Chief Minister, to the subject at the end of part one that I said I wanted to raise with you, the enormous debt burden that you've inherited. By some calculations, you have a debt burden of 1.42 lakh crore. I'm told that in 2015-16, Punjab's debt to GDP ratio was 31.4% compared to a national average of 22%. Those are pretty astronomically worrying figures. How do you plan to respond to this debt burden?
Well, we have to handle it. I mean, every state passes through a crisis. We have, because of the squandering of our money by the past government. When we left the government, I think the debt burden was about 36,000 crores. And now it's not 142. They have now, the borrowings which they've made, 31,000 crores more, which they haven't repaid. They got before they left government, they got that converted into a term loan again. So it will be really 170 something.
It's even higher than the 1.42, it's 1.70. But do you have any well worked out idea how you plan to respond to this?
Yes, we are already working on it. In fact, as I said, before we even came into government, all this was being looked at. Manpreet, who is our finance minister now, Manpreet Badal, He was finance minister for 4 years with the Akalis earlier. So he and his team had been working in it with me, and we have already thought of how we can start tackling this problem.
Now, one of the measures you decided on
But basically the end result is going to be this. You've got to get your industry moving.
Yes, and?
You've got to get your industry moving. You've got to increase your revenue. You've got to tighten your belt. And because agriculture doesn't give you anything, it gives you 1 or 2% to your growth. We as a state are growing much less than the average of India. I mean, today I don't think it's correct, but the figures that are being given that in India, despite demonetization, is growing at 7%. Well, we were at that stage when they were growing at about 7.4, we were down to 5.6.
Let me put this to you. At
so
that
what
cabinet,
we are now, I don't know.
At that cabinet meeting on Saturday, one of the decisions you took was to set up an expenditure reforms commission to examine all government expenditure to ensure prudence and efficiency.
Yes.
Let me ask you, are you actually planning to cut wasteful or to prune wasteful and unnecessary expenditure? Because those are always very difficult decisions to take. Governments tend to talk about doing it, but rarely act.
But we don't have any option. What is the option? With the way the things are going in Punjab, the way the things they are at the moment, unless you tighten your belt, which means cutting wasteful expenditure and increase revenue, you will never be able to resolve this problem.
And you're prepared to do this even at the cost of some measure of popularity, because cutting expenditure is never popular.
Yes, but then what can be done? We have to look at the future of Punjab, not today, but in the coming generations. What are we going to leave our state at? And I think we have to take some tough decisions, and if I'm quite capable of taking tough decisions, then I think it has to be taken.
You're saying you're capable of taking tough decisions, and your supporters will certainly say you are, but one contradictory note at that cabinet meeting on Saturday was the decision to give smartphones to youth. When you have an enormous debt burden and you're looking to cut wasteful expenditure, was this a wise decision?
You know, during the run-up to the election, there were 3 programs IPAC did. One was this debt, agriculture debt. One was smartphones, and what was the other one? There was a third program we had given. Now, these are all, out of them, I think there are about 17 lakh smartphones people had sent their forms in. And we will be doing that. It will be a national tender, and various companies will probably give whatever the tender papers ask from them. And you know what happens normally? There's so much competition in this world that we will get those phones very cheap, fully loaded phones, cheap. I think the companies then make their money on the usage of and the money that's everyone spends on it on a recurring basis. But once the capital, the telephone and all, I think we'll get it fairly cheap. Our people are thinking it won't be very expensive. And then what we are going to do, we are putting a cess. You're going to have a cess on mining. Now I'll give you an example. Take mining, sand mining. When we say mining, we have sand and grit, only 2 things. The government gets 35 crores as its license fee, and they are making 4,000 crores. So if we can control that, if on our liquor we put a cess of 10 rupees a case or 15 rupees a case, we have enough money to cover all our telephones and other proposals. So that's not out of the budget, that's out of box thinking separately.
So a cess on mining, a cess on liquor will be how you make up for revenue shortfall and tackle the debt burden, but it's also how you're going to pay for this expenditure on smartphones at a time when otherwise you're cutting expenditure.
Not only that, look at our social welfare schemes, old age pensions, widow pensions. These Akalis are promising, they haven't given it to them for the last 1 year or 1.5 years. So this cess is going to cover that also. I think it'll be enough for us to cover our programs which we have announced.
Now, Chief Minister, a decision that you took at that first cabinet meeting on Saturday that hasn't been picked up by the press is your decision that the Department of Home will prepare a detailed proposal for police reforms in keeping with the Supreme Court's direction in the Prakash Singh case. I have 2 joint questions to ask you. A, Are you really serious about this? And B, if you are, then won't Punjab become the first state to undertake extensive police reforms?
Well, firstly, let me tell you this. The Prakash Singh Committee report is 20 years old. Things have changed since then. So we have to look into why I've said that the committee, otherwise, you know, you have a report to go on. But if it's an old report and 20 years, a lot of change, technology's changed, other things, weaponry's changed, training techniques have changed. So therefore, I've asked the Home Department to look into it as to bring it right up to date. And yes, we are intending to implement these police reforms. Now look at the police. You have your constables on duty in the districts who are 18 hours on duty. You see them next morning, they've got red eyes, they're back on duty again. You have so much wastage of manpower. They don't get a day's leave in a week. So I've said 8 hours maximum duty, 1 day a week they must have it off. And that is what I was telling the police today in our meetings. And these are the sort of things that we are going to bring about to enforce it. You know, a man who's tired, I've been as a soldier. I mean, if you are on a sentry duty for 4 hours or 3 hours at night, you're deadbeat next day. So a minimum, as the army does it, 8 hours duty and or 9 hours duty. Unless there's a war on, then you're 24 hours on duty.
All of that, all of that, Chief Minister, would be
weekend off.
All of that would be very welcome.
These are all part of reforms.
But will you also undertake the more difficult part of reforms, which is to give senior superintendent and above level people, ADGs and DGPs, fixed tenures? And secondly, will you also limit, minimize or preferably stop altogether political interference in appointments? Because those are two things the Supreme Court is very strong about. No chief ministers wanted to do them up till now. Is this part of what you talk about when you talk about police reforms?
Well, firstly, I'll tell you, this last government was changing police officers every 3 months. I don't know what was the logic in this. I am not going to let any officer be transferred for 2 years. He gets to know his district. He's got children. He wants to put them in school. You can't just, they're human beings and treat them like machines that you keep shunting them about. These are sort of welfare measures that are coming. And yes, there are problems which have been mentioned in the Prakash Singh Committee report. So what is relevant today, we will certainly implement those.
Whatever is relevant today, you will certainly implement. Is that right?
Yes.
In which case,
because 20 years ago that report was made. You know, times have changed, issues have changed.
I believe the report actually is not 20 years ago. I believe it was in fact 2004, 2005. But that's just a detail. My last question, Chief Minister, I'm going to quote from a recent Hindu editorial written after your election but before your swearing in. The paper says, performance in Punjab is the key to Congress's revival in northern and western India, where the BJP has won most assembly elections over the last 5 years. In other words, how you perform as Chief Minister over the next 5 years could very well determine your party's future in northern and western India and perhaps in the country as a whole. A, do you accept that? And B, is that a daunting burden to carry on your shoulders?
Well, this is, you know, it is certainly, if we are able to get the state moving well and the image of the Congress party goes up here, then automatically it'll affect the image of the party elsewhere. And that is what I'm going to do. I mean, my president, my vice president have given me their full support. I have had full support right down the line. And it is my duty to do. And not only as a congressman, but as a Punjabi, to see that my state is out of this mess. And if that contributes to pushing the image of the Congress up in other places, then I think it's great. And we have done our duty.
Chief Minister, my producer tells me in my ear that we now have visuals of your Chief Secretary in a car with the red beacon lights. I am asking my producer to play that footage as I put this last question to you. There it is. You can't see Chief Minister, but you can see this car with the red beacon light. In fact, there are 3 cars, I'm told, one after another with red beacon lights. Do you want to take up this matter with your Chief Secretary? Because the footage is being played on the screen as I talk.
Is it mentioned there? Is it mentioned Chief Secretary?
No, it doesn't mention Chief Secretary. I'm simply being told
Chief Secretary?
No, it doesn't mention Chief Secretary, but I'm being told that it is allegedly the Chief Secretary's convoy. That's what I've been told, and therefore I thought I'd raise the issue one last
Chief
time.
Secretary doesn't have a convoy. They all have one car each.
But clearly cars with red beacons are being used, even if it's not the Chief Secretary.
I don't know whose cars these are, but I will certainly make it, but not the Chief Secretary.
But you'll certainly look into the matter to try and find out whose cars they were and why they have red beacons.
I don't know who's done it. I mean, I passed through. You see, our meeting was at the Punjab Bhavan, and there was a line of cars there. I never saw any red lights, but if you've got a picture of it, then we will certainly check it out.
Thank you very much, Chief Minister, and I'm very grateful to you for having given your first interview to India Today and for the fact that you spoke so comprehensively. Good luck as you tackle the daunting challenges you have to face. Thank you very much for speaking to me.